Guys, what is going on? It's the DOF coming at you with another late night video. So, let's talk about back in the heyday, the time when the internet was the funnest it ever was. Boy, it really was a blast. And I'm going to tell you some stories about what was going on in my life. My first computer, getting on the scene, the person that I knew that was into this. And let's just go ahead and jump right into this. So we're going back to the time pretty much when laptops had just started becoming popular, and laptops were pretty good now. Screen resolution was good. They weren't like little bricks. And so here was my first computer. I got a Dell laptop with a 30 gig hard drive and 2 gigs of RAM, I believe, 2 gigs of RAM. 30 gig hard drive, and I think it was over $2,000 at the time. Yeah. So some of these people I knew a guy that I had met through these other people, and if you're like me, when I get something new, I tell everybody. Like, that's just what I do. I tell everybody. I don't know what it is, but if I'm excited about something or I get something new, I tell everyone. So I happened to mention it in this group of people that I got a computer, and this guy's like, "Oh yeah, got a computer, huh?" I said, "Yeah, I don't know nothing about it, man. Nothing." And he says, "Well, I can help you out with that." Dude was a really cool dude, and hung out with some people I knew, and I became pretty good friends with him. And he said, "When you get that computer, bring it over to my house, and Gary and a couple of the other guys will come over, and we'll kick back some beers." This is going way back in the day. I still smoked at the time. So we'll kick back some beers, and all he drank was Guinness. So I get this Dell laptop. I go to this guy's house, and there is literally like a computer in every room. There's a computer downloading stuff in his kitchen. I mean, it was crazy. And like I said, keep in mind, the technology wasn't like it is now. With everybody having multiple computers and laptops and iPads, none of that was around. So this guy's got computers all over the place, man. House set up really cool. He's got one of these big TVs. Came out of a bar. He said they gave it to him when they closed this bar down, one of those huge old school projection TVs. In the living room, he had stereo speakers all over. And a couple of guys went over there, and we're hanging out. He's drinking Guinness. I don't know what I was drinking. I can't remember. I don't know what it was. This guy starts showing me stuff that he can do with the computer, and I'm just like blown away. Like I don't even know where to begin. So he starts teaching me stuff about the computer. He's like, "Look, man, first thing I'm going to do, I'm wiping this whole computer that Dell just sent you." He goes, "I'm totally wiping it." He said, "I'm putting in this disk, and it's going to clear the whole thing." He said, "I'm going to reset it up, reformat it, and I'm going to get you going with just what you need on this computer. It's going to save you space and memory, and it's going to be set up nicely for you." So he starts telling me about all these programs he's going to do to my computer, the things he's going to put on there, stuff that I would need and not junk I wouldn't need as it came from Dell. And I'm seeing all the stuff this guy can do. He's got a laid out computer for the time. It's like, the best you can get. He's got all this, high-end equipment. Well, here is something you'll really want to hear. This is a story time right now of that guy. What I come to find out later was, after I became pretty good friends with him and some of the other people he hung with, was he was originally from California, and he was a hacker when computers first hit the scene. Like, from what I've been told, like when computers first came out, it was for like medical records in the library, hospitals in the library. And then it just opened up. And no, Al Gore did not invent the internet. So this guy was a hacker in California, and he got busted. I never did find out the details of what he was doing, but at that time, you could make money hand over fist if you were a hacker, because everything was so new, all the technology wasn't there, and it was just, it was wide open. So he got busted, I think by the feds, and what ended up happening was, while he was at the police station, and they had been bringing him in and giving him different interviews and things, a couple of detectives asked him if they could look at their computers for something. Like I said, computers were prevalent, but the computer knowledge was low. So he said, yeah. So he helped a couple detectives. Then he started helping some of the cops in there on their computers. And they said, hey, man, they said, we think you're a decent person. You've been totally cooperative. You've offered to help us for no payment. We are going to let the judge know or whatever, how cooperative you are and that you helped us with some issues on our computers that we had in here. So he said, okay, so this is just in a nutshell, long story short. So when he goes to court, basically the judge is talking to him saying, hey, I heard you did all these good things at the department for some detectives. But what do you want to do with your life? And he said, I'll have business cards printed within 3 days of me getting out of here. I'm starting a computer repair business. I'm done with hacking. I'm done with all that. I'm going to start going into repairing computers, and I'll be able to fix people's computers anywhere they need it, and by word of mouth, I'll have so much business, I want to be able to take it all. And that's exactly what happened too. So the judge went really light on the guy, and he did just that. He started his own computer business. He ended up at some point later in the state I'm in doing it, and he had so much business he couldn't handle it. I think he had his number in the phone book or listed somewhere, and he had to take it. He had to unlist his number because just by word of mouth he was getting so much business he couldn't do it all. So like what he would do is he had so much computer work that like he would take people that was like an hour drive away or an hour and a half drive away, and then he would hit all the places in between other customers on the way to that guy or on the way back, and he would schedule all these. Like he would take a computer repair job an hour away, and then the whole way toward that job he would do people's that was in that area and fix computers day and night. I mean, this guy was like just burning himself out. He couldn't keep up with it. But he was making a ton of money. He was making so much money. I mean, it was unreal because he was so good and he was so easy to deal with, and people liked him when he came to work on their computers. People trusted him, and because people would look at things that they shouldn't be looking at. I got a story time about that with somebody that I knew doing that, and people would look at things they shouldn't be looking at. I don't mean illegal. I just mean things that they wouldn't want their family to know that they're looking at. And then he would go clear their computers, and he'd be like, I don't say anything unless, only way he would say anything is if it was illegal, something illegal. Other than that, he wouldn't say anything. So he would go and fix people's computers because they looked at something they shouldn't have been looking at, and they got a virus, malware, spam, Trojan virus on the computer, and it messed their computer up. And he would fix that. And even though he could see what had happened to the computer, he would never say anything, of course. So he was making a ton of money. People trusted him. They were giving word of mouth out, and he just couldn't keep up with it all. Okay, so what ended up happening was he had so much business that he just got overwhelmed, couldn't keep up, just couldn't get to everything he needed to do. He just shut it down. He literally shut down his business because he just couldn't keep up. I don't know if he didn't know people he could hire or he couldn't find the right ones, but he was very particular about his work. So when he shut his business down, he had a bunch of money and wasn't married, just had a girlfriend. And so what he was doing was he was just partying and doing computer stuff, and buddies were coming over and he was buying everybody's drinks, and he was he was just doing that every day. Funny side note story here for you. They used to call me the airplane man. So why did they call me the airplane man? Because my buddy always brought me these airplane packs of Jack Daniels, the little bottles. They're not called airplane packs, but they were little bottles like you would get up on an airplane. And I'm going to tell you the reason why I took the little bottles, but it was like a 8 or a 10 pack of real Jack Daniels in these little plastic bottles like they would serve on airplanes. And the reason I wanted those, or I used to drink those, is because like I would have a beer, and then I would have one of those little airplane bottles. It was like the perfect amount. It was like 2 shots or something like that, or a shot and a half. I would have that, and then I would have another beer or 2, and then I would drink the Jack Daniels in the little plastic bottles. This is way back in the day when I was a young pup. And so he just wanted to party and hang out. So he'd be like, man, he'd call guys and say, come over, man. I'm going to get your drinks right now and stuff. And we'd hang out, party there. Neon beer signs on the wall, all this good stuff. Computers everywhere running. It was just fun, man. And so they called me the Airplane Man. Because I always had to have the little airplane, the little bottles of Jack Daniels to mix in with the beers I would drink. So this guy is setting up my computer, and like the longest thing that took was it to re-download everything. But he had showed me at one point, somehow he was on a, like colleges and different institutions had certain tiers of high-speed internet that the general public couldn't get. I think it was called Tier 1 and 2, or Tier 1, 2, 3. Nobody residential could get this internet speed. Well, he showed me on his computer, he was running what a college would run as far as internet speed. They get priority, but places like that on internet speed, they get the priority. So this guy was running somehow. He was running in from a system that was giving him Tier 1 capability for downloading and uploading things. And, he's showing me the ways of the internet and the different things to do. And, at that time, the downloading musics and eDonkey and things like that, just getting music and stuff like that. He's burning discs and burning music discs for people and, just stuff like that. He also had an untraceable IP address. Like, I remember he'd be drinking and he would show me, he'd say, look at my IP. And then he would click it to a map, and the map would say like he was in Saudi Arabia, and it would be like one of those palaces over in Saudi Arabia. That's where it would say that his IP address was coming from. There was a way that you could do this on a computer to have your computer to have the IP address, which is the IP address of a computer is basically like a house number of a house. So if it has the false number, it can't be traced or tracked. He did it because he wanted to be he was anti-hack. So he couldn't be hacked, because being a hacker, he knew what could happen to people and what other people could do. So he would click his IP address on a map, and it would come up some palace in Saudi Arabia from some rich oil guy or something, or over in Turkey or something crazy like that. And it would show that's where his computer's at on a map. It would ping, and I'm like, man, this stuff is crazy, that you can do all this. So another aspect I wanted to get into and branch off before I go way too long here was how he always told me, I remember when I was new with the computer, he said the internet is like the wild, wild west. And it really was. When you were on the computer, you looked out for yourself. You didn't have to look at anything you didn't want to. You didn't have to see anything you didn't want to. You could do what you wanted. You were your own man. And it was pretty much wide open. And I miss those days. And I'm going to tell you why. It has nothing to do with like age-restricted things. Why I miss the computer days of being wide open. Oh, I got to tell you this point first. He used to tell me that the internet could never be restricted because the internet is worldwide and nobody has jurisdiction over the internet and what's on there. So basically, if the internet is around the globe, no one country can claim jurisdiction and regulate the internet. But now we see in modern times how the biggest content providers can filter, censor, shadow ban speech of politics they don't like, or for candidates they don't like, or to help certain candidates. This is happening all over. But back in the day, you would get on a website, it had little terms of service. You couldn't show nudity and things like that, of course. But you could do videos and say whatever you wanted. That's what I miss. Like, even if people had wild conspiracy theories, I used to like to watch those just to watch and hear what they had to say. But all that's gone. And then what's really dirty is shadow banning. Because shadow banning is where I put up a video, it uploads, and everything's all well and good. But because they don't like my politics or what I say, they bury me. They bury me in the system, and I never get recommended to anybody when they're watching a video. I'm never off to the side. I never pop up as a watch next. And that's the algorithm that runs YouTube. Any videos that get millions and millions of views, it's because YouTube puts them on their front page. They put them as recommended videos to the side of other videos. Well, you lose all that because I've never in my life experienced how social media companies can censor you. Before, all we had, if you went back decades, all there would have been news and what was put over the TV for you to take in and to hear. And they could guide that anywhere they wanted. Look up Operation Mockingbird. It was said that there were over 400 newscasters that were known to be government agents that were working as newscasters to push narratives and to help different things of whatever they wanted to push at that time. This is all true. You can look it up. Look up Operation Mockingbird. So now we threw a wrench in their works when these social medias came on board, because people could skip the news and the TV and all that propaganda, and they could go to trusted people on social media, and you could hear the facts on there. So now what you see happening is the government doesn't restrict your speech, but the biggest social media platforms on the planet, on behalf of certain political parties and on behalf of the people that they like, they restrict your speech. It's quite the catch-22. Now, if they were to be able to be open for lawsuits, it would stop tomorrow. But they can go in and restrict anything you say because it's not the government. But what's scary is when they do it on behalf of the government. That's where it gets into a bad situation. Because they can silence and push forward the narratives they want, pick their own fact checkers that are totally and absolutely wrong, and then when you put up something that's totally true, that they can't be denied, they'll say it's partially true or missing information to try to make you think that the whole thing is wrong. I've never seen anything like this. And of course, this just started since the newest election. That's when this started. So, back in the golden days of YouTube, nobody restricted your speech. Not even social media companies, no one. You could put videos up of whatever you wanted, and you could talk about your opinions on whatever you wanted. But now, unfortunately, everything's so political that, unfortunately, these content owners are going to push their narrative, whether you like it or not. If you don't like it, they'll say just leave our platform, or they'll just ban you outright if you have too much truth. So back at that time, this guy I knew, this computer guy, never ever would have thought that it could ever come to this in this country. Who would have thought? Who would have thought that you would have a political opinion and you would write stuff that was true, and it would either be flagged down, marked as missing information, marked as partially true, or just shadow banned, and they buried you under everybody else so no one could see it except for like your best friend? Who would have thought that would ever come to that here? But unfortunately, that's what we're living in right now. But back in the day, and when YouTube was new, oh man, when the private company owned it, and it said YouTube in big letters underneath, it said broadcast yourself. It doesn't do that anymore. YouTube was I like YouTube still. I'll always use YouTube. but it was much better in the day. The best times of YouTube, I'm going to go here, I promise. The best times of YouTube was when I could do a video, and anybody out there that watches my video, you could make your own video, and you could post it to this as a video response, and it would show underneath, and people could click on it. Best days of YouTube there ever was. All right, guys, enough rambling for now. Until next time, I got another story time coming for you soon. I think you'll like it. All right, guys, I hope everyone's doing great out there, and I'll see you real soon. This is DOF.